On July 31st, 1999, Tracie Hawlett and J.B. Beasley left their homes as they were headed to a party in Midland City and Headland. About an hour and a half after they left, Tracie called her parents to tell them that they were lost in Ozark and that they were headed home. But that was the last time their parents heard from them. The next time they heard about their daughters was when the police told them they had been killed execution style. Each had a single shot in the head, and their bodies were stuffed in the trunk of the car they had left in. However, their bodies was not the only mystery that had to be solved. On the night of July 31st, 1999, the two girls left their hometown of Dothan together in Beasley's 1993 black Mazda 929. JB had just turned 17, and their friends planned a field party in JB's honor in Headland. This was about 10 miles north of Dothan. However, the girls never arrived at the party and never returned home. Even though they knew their destination, they were unfamiliar with the roads. So after driving for more than an hour, they concluded that they were lost. At this time, they were in Ozark, which is more than 20 miles northwest of Dothan. So at around 11:30 p.m., the pair pulled up to the Big Little convenience store and Chevron station located at 763 East Broad Street. The store had already closed for the night. Luckily for the girls, there was another woman, Marilyn Merritt and her daughter, who had also stopped to buy a soda. The girls asked Marilyn for directions, and she gladly directed them to Highway 231. She explained that this would take them about 20 miles southeast of Dothan. Miss Merritt and her daughter watched as the girls pulled out of the parking lot and turned right towards the highway. They were the last people to see the girls alive. The following day at around 8 a.m., Tracie and J.B. were not yet home. Worried, the girls' parents reported them missing. As with any missing person case, the search began as soon as possible before the trail becomes cold. It was not long until the Ozark police officers found Tracie's black Mazda 929 parked on Herring Avenue. This was less than a mile away from the payphone that Tracie Hawlett had used the night before to call her mother. When the car was found, there was no signs of commotion or anything of that sort. However, one thing that puzzled the cops is why did the girls stop? There wasn't any signs of the girls being forced off the road because there was no damage to the car. But even though it wasn't damaged, the car was quite muddy. The car had had a full tank the previous day, yet there was no gas at this time. The window on the driver's side was rolled down a few inches and the doors were unlocked. Even more puzzling was the fact that JB's driver's license was on the dashboard and the girls' purses were inside the car. The only thing that was missing this whole time was the car keys. The police spent the next few hours at the crime scene trying to figure out where the girls were. At all this time, they never found any signs of a struggle or any clues on where the girls went. It got to the point where the Dothan police sent an investigator. The investigator was planning to tow the car back to Dothan for further investigation, but as the officers were waiting for the two trucks, the investigator realized that they could open up the trunk with an inside lever without having to use the keys. From the time they discovered the car to the time they discovered they could open the boot, it was nearly 2 p.m. And the moment they opened the trunk, there were the lifeless bodies of J.B. Beasley and Tracie Hawlett. Each of them had a gunshot wound to the head, which was later found to be from a 9mm. The girls had their clothes on and there was no obvious signs of a struggle. However, Tracie had a single shot to the temple, a scratch on her arm and briar thorns on her pants. Her new shoes were also covered in mud. From the way the bodies were positioned in the trunk, the police could tell that they were stuffed into the trunk first. One of the weirdest things was that there was a 9mm shell casing resting on Tracie's leg as well. JB had a single shot on the cheek and was noticeably dirty with mud all over her shoes. In addition, both girls' pants were wet below the knee. At this point, the police had already ruled out robbery as a motive because all their belongings were in the car. And when autopsies were done on their bodies, they ruled out rape as there was no evidence. However, 2 months later, the state crime lab reported that there were traces of semen on JB's bra, panties, and skin. At this point, law enforcement could only hope that the semen could lead them to a suspect. Eventually, they ruled this as a sexual offense, and the hunt for the murderer began. At the same time that Tracie Hawlett was calling her mother from the payphone, Johnny William Barentine told his wife he was going out to buy milk for the couple's 2-year-old son. He returned home slightly past 1 a.m., and according to his wife, he seemed shaken. When she asked him, he said that he had been hit by a black truck with a Dothan tag near Herring Avenue. After confiding to a few of his friends and claiming that he knew something about the murders of the 2 teens found on Herring Avenue, One of them convinced him to go to the authorities and report it. And so on September 1st, exactly 1 month since the girls' bodies were found, he went to the police and was recorded for 4 hours. During this time, he told 6 different stories. In some of these stories, he even placed himself at the crime scene. According to Spivey, the Ozark police chief, Barentine claimed that he had seen a black truck speeding away from the area where the girls were found on the night of the killings. Later in the interview, he claimed that he had picked up a tattooed man that he didn't know and that they drove together to the Big Little store. Barentine then claimed that he saw the man enter a car with the 2 girls and told him to follow. When they got to Herring Avenue, Barentine claimed he heard 2 gunshots. And when the man returned, Barentine gave him a ride from the scene and went home. Barentine would later change his story and say that the man he picked up was his neighbor. When police discovered that Barentine lived less than a mile from the crime scene, Barentine was arrested then and there, and he quickly became the prime suspect. Even though they charged him with 2 counts of capital murder, Barentine never mentioned any sexual activity that would have led to the semen on JB's clothing and body. As for the neighbor, he had an alibi for that evening. When DNA tests were carried out, they never matched Barentine or the neighbor. Later, Barentine admitted that he had fabricated the story, hoping to get the reward money. During a preliminary hearing on September 21st, Alabama Bureau of Investigation agent Charles Huggins testified that Barentine could even describe the girls' clothing and other items that were consistent with the crime. Barentine, who was now a prime suspect, was held without bond in the Dale County Jail. During an October 18th bond hearing, he denied his involvement in the killings, even though he had already convinced the police otherwise. He told the judge that he went to the BP at around 11 p.m. to get milk for his little boy. But even with this, Barentine was denied bond and appointed a defendant. All this time, Barentine's friends and family stood by him, saying that he was innocent. During one of his hearings, it was discovered that Barentine had finished the 7th grade and part of the 8th one. After that, he was in special education classes, which was an even bigger reason why he could not do something like that. When it was later revealed that Barentine's DNA did not match that of the semen found on JB's body, the judge finally approved Barentine's bond request. He would later be released from jail on December 17th. The police were under intense pressure to arrest someone. As a result, they had a few more suspects, including the man from Michigan. On the night of the murders, there was a man from Michigan who was out partying near where the car was found. He remained a suspect, even though the DNA tests failed to match the semen found on JB's body. Spivey claimed that the man left town days after the murders. The main issue is that the man could not account for 3 or 4 hours of his time on the night of the murders. The man would later make suspicious comments to people. Another suspect was the driver of a small white pickup truck. There was footage from a video surveillance camera from inside the Big Little store that caught a grainy, poor quality image of what seemed to be a small white pickup truck at the gas pumps. This was around the same time that JB and Tracie were at the outside telephone calling Tracie's mother. However, the store was already closed at the time, and there was no record of gas purchase at the pump. From the video, you can see clearly that no one is leaving the truck, and we don't see the driver. When the truck's photo was released to the media, no one came forward about it. And so just like that, the truck and the driver were said to have disappeared. Over the years, the case became even colder. However, the police never gave up hope of finding a DNA match to the semen found on JB's body. 20 years later, with the help of new DNA technology, the police identified Coley McCraney as the final suspect. His DNA matched that of the semen that was found on JB's body. Around the time of the killings, he was living about a mile away from where the girls' bodies were found. He was arrested, and this spread greatly on the news. This came as a shock to the people of Alabama and all who knew McCraney. Now he is facing 5 counts of capital murder charges. And ever since his arrest, he has sat behind bars in the Dale County Jail. He is expected to face trial on April 17, 2023. Hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more exciting and skin-crawling videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.